here for one of my favourite videos, and that's to talk about my favourite books of the year. I am so excited because I managed to read a lot more than I did last year, because last year I only read like 30 something books. So picking 15 out of last year's was just like bottom of the barrel, these are my favourites, but I just couldn't break the scaffold of the 15 books as my top list because it's just how I've always done it every year since I started BookTube. But I read 52 books this year, so there's definitely a lot more choice here. And even though like choosing 15 and 14 can sometimes be like, yeah, they're a bit meh, but they're still good. But like, these are still the top books that I read. I rank them in order of what my least favorite to my favorite of the 15, even though 15 is still a favorite. But I'm just so excited to get in this video. It's always a long one, so not that I need to rush through it because I want to tell you why they're my favorites, but like, I'm so excited. So for number 15, I had to do The Love Hypothesis by Hazelwood. So this was a reread for me, and honestly, it could have been higher up in the list, but I just feel like with rereads, they shouldn't get top spot of the list because I should be talking about all the new books that I've read. So I always add them right down the bottom, even though they are definitely favorites every time I read them. But I love this book so much. I love the dynamic of Olive and Adam. I love all the science talk. I love how strong the friendships are in this book, and just the banter and the jokes and just all the different things that happened in this book and the awkward situations they got into from the fake dating, because fake dating is one of my favorite tropes like of all time. So everything that I want is in this book. And when I first read it last year, because this book was like number 2 on my list last year because it was that good, could have even been number 1. I honestly don't remember what my favorite book of last year was, which is probably not good because I should remember these things. But I just loved it so incredibly much, and this is definitely an author that I'm going to continue to read for many, many years to come. Even though books are basic, I don't care. I loved it so much, and it's just one that I highly recommend if you haven't read it all, because you really should, especially if you're just getting into contemporary, because it's just written so well. Number 14 on my list is Where It Lands, and I'm so sorry that I cannot remember who the author of this book is because I listened to it on audio, but I really enjoyed the story, and this is a book that I saw the cover for initially with all the different couples kind of chilling there, and I was like, ooh, what is going on here? And then when I read the synopsis, I saw that it was a split decision storyline, which I'm starting to really enjoy because I like true timelines because they are always great, especially, as I said, timelines that are made from a decision. Like the decision in this one is a coin toss. So with the two boys, they meet a girl and they both really like her, and they do a coin toss to decide on who gets to date her. And both storylines, because you get one storyline for most of the book and then you get the other storyline for the other part of the book, and then the last part of the book is alternating between the two storylines as they come to the point that they come together. But the way that I love these story ideas so much, but even when you've got dual timeline stories where they're set in different points in time, like there is so much good story that can be written from this, and I don't care how many times I read a story that's very similar, I do not care. But I love the way that this book was actually a lot more serious than I thought it would be, and I love the way that I had a boy that I liked a lot more than the other, and to see the different ways that the characters would be interacting with each other based on what the decision was. And as you got further and further into the book, there is things that you could see happening because you knew what happened in the other storyline, and things that you never would have thought of happening. Like, it was just such an interesting concept, and I really, really enjoyed it, and it really made me think, which is one of the main reasons I love this book. Number 13 on my list is The Bromance Book Club by Lisa K. Adams. So even though I've always said that this book is really, really corny, it's very corny, I still loved it. Like, second chance romances are becoming a new favorite thing for me. So when I was looking at the books that I read, I was like, you know what, this was actually a really good book. I really liked Gavin as a character, and Thea was a really good character too, and I really liked the way that we got to see her like grow a lot more and really get out of the patterns of the things that she's been doing over and over again for the last couple of years being married with Gavin. She really broke out of her shell and was starting to do the things that she really wanted, and Gavin was starting to understand that what he wants is not necessarily what his wife wants. There were so many really good thought-provoking things, but the thing that makes this book is the book club of the boys. I loved it so much that they read romance books together. They really cared about each other. It was really nice to see, and I cannot say the word, but the camaraderie, do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, the togetherness of them. Like, I liked that it was boys supporting boys, which you need to see a lot more, because girls do support girls, even though girl hate is one of the main tropes in books, but I just really enjoyed it. Number 12 on my list is Love Flushed by Evie Mitchell, so I'm picking the second book in this quartet of stories just because I really enjoyed this so much more, because again, it's a second chance romance. I just love the way that Annie and Link clearly still loved each other so much, and yes, there has been some bad shit in their lives, that a lot of it was kind of misunderstanding, but also them just never talking to each other again because they felt like they'd upset the other person really badly. But I just like the way that they both grew so much since the kids they were when they were first together, and like they both have their own businesses, they're both kicking ass, and they have such great friends, and just it's such a cute story. Like I really enjoyed the way that they just came back together, and the way that Evie Mitchell writes is just so interesting, and I'm so excited for the next two books. Like I really want to read them as soon as I can, and I really do hope that they come out before Rare because I did pre-order them, so hopefully. Number 11 on my list is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. So this was a book that even though I thought I would like it, I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. I don't know why this murder mystery made me think I wasn't going to. I don't know if I just expected something really different or what, but I was so captivated by this story. This murder mystery was actually quite sad because it's really interesting because like with Truly Devious, a lot of the time, the people that were involved in the murder either weren't alive anymore or it's been so long that it became a cold case. But actually getting to this story where siblings of the people that got murdered were still relatively young and everyone still talked about it in that sense because it was only 5 years old, this case, it was really raw to read. But Pippa was such a good little detective. Like the way that she had her logs and the way that she used Facebook, social media, talking to people, interviewing people, and yeah, there were some ways that she got around things that were a bit shady, but I really enjoyed the way that she thought and the way that she really delved into this case so completely. And literally I didn't expect the end to be what it was. Like there was signs of it and things that I probably should have picked up, but I was so captivated by the writing and the storytelling during this whole experience, and I am very excited to continue on with the trilogy because I don't necessarily know if there's going to be more murders in the story, but just definitely other things to be figured out, and I'm very excited to find out where it's going to go. Number 10 on my list is The X-Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. So this is a book that I decided to buy because I had another book by this author on my list for 2022 to read that I did not. Hopefully 2023 will be the year that I will read that book, but I was just pleasantly surprised by how much fun the fake dating for this story actually was. Like I've never read a book where it's actually based around radio talk shows and like having that, because I don't listen to the radio, so it's not really a big thing. Like I feel like podcasts have taken over the radio aspect a bit more. Like obviously there is still radio and people still use radio, but I don't know, it just feels like it's an age-old thing, even though it's still a thing. But I just love the way that they had so much great banter with each other on the air, and just how cute it was, and like there was an age gap with him being a lot younger than her, even though I always find that a little bit weird, but I really enjoyed it. Like they had so many shenanigans, and the way too that just like the radio network was actually so sucky to women, exploring that in the story was really good, and just the romance was just really cute. Like I highly enjoyed it, and I even bought this book for my friend for Christmas because I was like, you have to experience it. Number 9 on my list is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. So as a book lover, I should have a book lover titled book in my book lover video, you know? I love Emily Henry's writing. It is amazing, and I'm always so excited for the next book that she releases, and I can't wait for Happy Places to come out this year. It's not too far away, like I think it comes out in April, but I'm so glad that there's always a new book for me to read every single year. But the way that this book was just so cute. Like I liked that it was about going to a small town with her sister and trying to break out of the mold of being the girlfriend that's always left for the small town life, because you know in stories when they have that where it's the main character is a rich person and they go off to go live in the country and they meet a girl there, and then they have their stuck up girlfriend who lives back in New York and they dump them by the end after a week. That happened to Nora 3 times in her life, so she doesn't feel very lovable because she feels like she's kind of like a shark, and the way that it really scarred her was a bit sad to read really. But then you've got August, who is such a grumpy person, but the way that they're both grumpy assholes kind of thing, but they're so lovable. Like I love the way that their relationship developed, and there was definitely a strong case of right person wrong time throughout the story here because there were so many things holding them back, and I just kept getting really sad. This was just a very well written book, and I really do highly recommend this one as well. Like I highly recommend all of them. I probably shouldn't say it after every book, but just like it was so good. Number 8 on my list is The Spanish Love Deception by Eleanor Armas. So this is an author that's took the book adult contemporary world by storm, I would really say. another fake dating because it is so good. But this is a book that I didn't think I would have on my list because I really didn't enjoy the first 200 pages because I was so freaking bored. But it was when they got to the auction, that is when it hit the sweet spot, and then I was actively obsessed because these are the type of niche stories that I like, where it's the grumpy man who is willing to help the main girl even though they've hated each other for a very long time for unknown reasons, and then you see them just being completely nice and wonderful to them until they explain why there was so much anger. It has such a clutch on my heart because it's always good every single time. Can be the same book, I do not care, it is always so good. But like, Adam and Aaron are two characters that I'm completely obsessed with, and I still need to read The American Roommate Experiment because I just have not. But it was just so good, and I know it's really thick as hell, but it really did need to tell so much story, except the first 200 pages could have just been like squished in a little bit more to make me like it sooner. Number 7 on my list is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I am so excited to meet her in Rare, and I have my fingers crossed that she is not going to cancel because she is definitely one of the top authors that I'm really excited to meet, and probably like one of the more famous ones coming to the event. I know it depends on what type of reader you are and who you know, but she does just feel very famous, and she did have a movie made out of this book. That seems fame worthy. But I absolutely devoured this book. I was so excited, and I'm so mad that I just never got to it like when it first came out so many years ago. But the way that they just actively hate each other so much was so funny to me because it wasn't just small snubs. Like, these were like legitimate things that they just did not like about each other, but there was the attraction there. And the sexual tension that they had was what really made the book funny to me because they didn't want to like each other, but then slowly it just developed into them realizing that the reasons that they hated each other weren't even that bad. And the way that the banter is just so good, it's chef's kiss. Like, everything about this book is amazing, and I'm really sad too because I don't think anything else that she's written has been at this level. But I'm still going to try some other books because I really do want to try and experience more of her writing, but I'm probably going to have my expectations lower, but this book is just amazing. Number 6 on my list is Daisy Jones and the Six. Oh my god, I didn't even realize that I did that. So, I read this book twice within the same month this year. I absolutely loved it so incredibly much. This is such a good story, and I'm so glad I finally got back on the Jennifer L. Armen bandwagon because, damn, I was so good at reading all the backlist books because they were all on audio, but then Daisy Jones and the Six and Malibu Rising and Carrie Soto was back were not on script, so I stopped reading. And I bought these books physically and then I never read them. But honestly, the audiobook is really, really good. It has a really good selection of cast and characters, and everyone has like the different voices and everything, so that really added to the story. But when they're talking, sometimes they don't say the name of the person who was talking, and you got to try and memorize which voice is for which person. So sometimes I'd be reading and I'd be like, who is that? Is that Graham? Is that Billy talking? And it's only because I only recently just physically read it that I was like, oh, I know who these characters are, which made it a little bit confusing for me, but I got there. But this book was just amazing, and I'm so excited for the TV show coming. Like, it's 2 months away now, and I'm just so excited. It's going to be so good. But Billy and Daisy have such an interesting story, and I just like the 70s vibes. I like the music and band vibes, and I am so excited to see how it's going to come out on screen because it just looks like it is going to be amazing. But this book did make me sad. The ending was not what I wanted, but I can embrace that. I'm just going to be happy and have to look at it with the open endingness of it. If you haven't read from this author before, you should probably start with Evelyn Hugo because that is a peak book, but they're really good. And number 5 on my list is Carrie Soto is back, also by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I know it's really random that I'm having 2 books that I've read from this author, and a lot of people are going to say, why would you put Carrie Soto above Daisy Jones and the Six? But I just liked it that slight bit more because Carrie Soto is just such a unique and interesting character. I liked that it was about tennis, and the way that her books are just vastly different with what they're actually about. Like, she's got a timeline storybook, then it's a book about a Hollywood star, and then it's a band, and then it's tennis, and it's like all the way that these books are about all these like fictional famous people that all live in the same bubble of world. The way that these 4 books, including Malibu Rising, were crafted is so unique and interesting, and I don't even know what she is going to write next, but I am all for it. But I just loved that Carrie Soto was such an underdog who was such an asshole, yet I wanted her to strive and win at everything she ever committed. And I like the way that we got to know so much about the story of her life and how well in depth it is, and then getting to see why she is the way that she is, and the way that her dad is so supportive and wanted her to be the best tennis player in the world. And like, Bo's a great character. Like, everything about this is so good, and I just was on the edge of my seat the whole entire book. Number 4 on my list is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. So this is her first time writing an adult contemporary, and it was so banging. I liked that this was a contemporary, but it still had the elements of like, ooh, there's ghosts in the world and she can see them. And her editor, who she went to go see because the main character is a ghostwriter, and she goes to the editor to talk to him about the book that she has not written. And then next minute he dies and he's haunting her. So she's got to finish the book because there is a dead editor around all the time. It was just such a vibe, and the way that the romance was just so cute, because once he couldn't really be living in his life of the hustle and bustle of the editing and was just hanging around her, he really started to fall in love with her, and it was just so cute because obviously he's dead. What are they meant to do? Like, it's just such a great story, but it's also so heavily about grief, because even though he's died, another person in her life also dies, so she has to deal with like in-person grief of being around her family, but then the grief that he's feeling because he has no one but her. Like, it's so good. I highly recommend this, and it's made me want to get back into some of the other books that Ashley Poston has written. Like, I really need to get back into it. Okay, we're at top 3, and I really would like you to comment before you continue on to tell me what you think these books are going to be. There's no prize except that you know me really well. So number 3 on my list is Love on the Brain by Hazelwood, because yes, I know a lot of people don't like it. Don't come at me. I was obsessed. The hate to love was just exquisite, okay? I love the way that B hates him so freaking much, and the reasons that she hates him seem very valid when you're looking at it at the time. But as you get to know Levi more and get to understand the way he is and why he does do these things, even though at first it doesn't make sense, but just also the way that the romance just develops, because B's just so against it because she hates him, and then she's like, why do I have feelings for you? Like, everything about it's so good, and I like that it was about NASA and there was space vibe. But the way that I got to learn a lot about the science behind the brain, that was really interesting as well. Like, I like the way that she does put in a lot of legit sciencey things that I would just not know about, but I just loved it, and I'm sorry I'm in the fan club of 1 for liking this book, but I don't care. Okay, coming in at number 2 is Olympus by Rachel Smith. I always get so freaking shocked when the graphic novel actually makes my list, and this came at number 2. Like, Heartstopper has never made it in the top 3. So that's saying something. And I still stand by the fact that I'm not a graphic novel reader, because I just read novels. Like, nothing against graphic novels, but I just don't really reach for them. Except for 3 cases where I read Nimona, I read Heartstopper, and I've now read this. Oh, and I also read Pumpkinheads, but other than that, I've read nothing else. But the main reason I am obsessed with this is just, it's so wholesome. Like, I love seeing this version of Hades, but also getting to see so many of the characters in mythology that are actually around and understanding more about the story. It's so easy to read through the pictures because, like, it's giving me the story without having to use my brain too much. But even though this book does have some very serious and triggering topics that can be really hard for people, I still really like the way that it still has this hopeful feeling to it, and just the way that it's just so colourful and easy to read, and just like Persephone and Hades, like, oh my god. And I love that all the characters have a different colour to their skin. Like, that makes it really cool as well. But I am so excited for volume 4 because I devoured the first 3 volumes and I just cannot wait. But if you have never read a graphic novel, this and Heartstopper are what I recommend. And number one is gonna come at no shock. Oh my god, like, I still can't stop thinking about this freaking book. To be honest, I don't know if I'm ever going to reread these books in my life, because it was a mission the first time, because they be thick. But like, this conclusion, because every time there is a second book in a Sarah J Maas book, they kill me every time, because freaking Akamath is one of my favorite books of all time. Crown of Midnight like ripped out my soul, and now this one, like, okay, it was quite slow for a lot of the book, and it was obviously building up towards something. And when you get to the last 200 pages, because that is the format with these books, is the last 200 pages are like fantasy on crack. And you do not know where it's going to go, because it is always crazy. And I just loved it so incredibly much. And then you get to the end, Like, I'm still not over the ending, and I don't know if this is a thing that we talk about because I never want to spoil this for anyone, but it is literally the craziest thing I have ever read, and it's even worse than the Akamath cliffhanger. Or even the Empire of Storms cliffhanger. For some reason for Empire of Storms, it upset me, but then we had to wait 2 years and I was able to like be okay, even though it still stressed me out. Like, you always do that where you kind of just come back and reread the last chapter of like a cliffhanger and be like, oh my god. I actually haven't done that, but I still think about it a lot, and I have seen people talking about it on the internet, but still. Everything about this book's great, and I love Bryce and Hunt so much, and I love all the characters. Like, there is such a good selection of characters, and even though this book is hella complicated and it makes me very confused a lot of the time, I love it so incredibly much, and you should not be shocked that this is top of my list. The way that my top list have just developed to basically all contemporaries is just not something I would expect. Like, why do I even read fantasy? Because it never makes my list anymore. But for you guys, please tell me what was your favourite book of 2022, because I love to know what people really enjoyed this year. But I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!